Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and I finally managed to get my hair cut and recolored before we go into a second lockdown. Welcome to today's video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, and today is going to be another Should You Pull banner video for a character that's been hyped up for a little while now, and that's Kurasame. Being from Type 0, he's somebody that flies under a lot of people's radar, and although has a massive cult following, and is actually my favourite character from the series, because I actually read the manga that he came from, in which he had the little pet Tonberry, which was the most adorable thing in the world. But we're here to talk about him in Dissidia Opera Omnia, so if you guys are interested in learning more about Kurasame himself, the event that is going to come with him, and of course whether or not you should pull on this banner, then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. As always guys, don't forget to check out all of my links in the description box below for my social media, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord and Patreon. On Twitch this week I will be obviously streaming Kurasame's event itself, as well as Final Fantasy XIV every Sunday morning. And on Friday nights now, I have now started my Final Fantasy count up, so I would love for you guys to come and join in with that. And of course to check out the videos for those that I started posting over on YouTube as well, as it's something that I can post on the regular, so that now I'm able to, I'm in a position where I'm basically a full-time content creator. I can be uploading stuff on days where I'm not uploading Opera Omnia content, so definitely give those a check out if you haven't already. On Patreon, I obviously shout out one of my patrons every time I release a video, and today that person is going to be Patch, so thank you very much for your support. And if you would like to perhaps obtain a title card just like Patch has right here, as well as getting involved with Would You Pull and regular voice chats with myself, then perhaps consider becoming a patron yourself, and they'll leave the link in the description box for that right below. Don't forget to check out all the websites there are associated with Opera Omnia, as you can see all around me, and again in the description box below. And of course, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators there are for Dissidia other than myself. So first things first, let's take a look at the banner itself, and let's take a look at Kurasame and what exactly it is he does that makes him so hype-worthy. So we're over here on DissidiaDB.com, as we always are, to have a quick look at any new characters that are coming about. Now, basically what Kurasame is he's a hybrid damage dealer slash support character, so he's very much an offensive based character that is very good at increasing your party's offensive stats, as well as the amount of HP damage they deal, while also dealing a pretty decent amount of damage himself. And he's also Ice Elemental, so obviously don't necessarily bring him to anything that's going to absorb or nullify ice damage, but other than that, he's definitely a character that's really good to go. Now, Ice Blade Slash is just a Brave HP attack that gives him one of the buffs that increases your party's max bravery and attack, and this gets better obviously with his 15 CP weapon and his C55 ability. But the main thing that you're after when it comes to Kurasame is his Ice Prison debuff. Now, Ice Prison is quite a unique debuff in that while an enemy has it, they've got less ice resistance, so they're obviously susceptible to all of Kurasame's own attacks, as well as anyone else in your party that does ice damage. It lowers their speed, and it increases the amount of HP damage they take by 5% for every level of that, or by 10% to begin with, then 5% increase by every level that has. So it goes up to a maximum of 5. Now this increases by 1 every time the enemy takes a turn, or you can increase it yourself by using Kurasame's various abilities, his HP plus, all sorts of things like that. But basically, once it hits the 5th level, so its maximum level, once the enemy acts, it then goes back down to level 1. But at level 5, having their speed reduced, their ice resistance reduced, and them taking 30% extra HP damage from all sources, including other party members, is not something to be sniffed at. It's a big deal. But so you've got his Multiple Zaga that actually puts it on there to begin with, and once you've actually maxed him out, they actually start the fight with Ice Prison, so you don't necessarily have to use it straight away. And Ice Blade Slash makes it so you can maintain it whilst you're still carrying on with keeping the Ice Prison buffs up, dealing lots of damage. It all goes quite nicely. Now, Ice Blade Slash is a 7-hit Brave HP attack once you've put its passives in, so it is actually pretty strong. And then the Multiple Zaga is a 6-hit AoE Brave HP, so it all of the damage from his basic skills it's all there, and the fact that you're getting this Ice Prison from it, as well as party-wide attack and max bravery buffs, which you also get from his C68 ability as well, it's all good. And we've not even covered his EX or his LD yet. His C65 is a 2-hit Brave HP attack that's also Ice Elemental and increases his attack, but the main reason that you'll use that will come to when we get to his EX. Now his EX, Ice Reaper, is a AoE Brave HP attack as well that also inflicts Ice Prison, so you're always going to be able to have Ice Prison on pretty much the entire time as long as they haven't cleansed it for whatever reason, as long as Kurasame is in your party. And it also inflicts a buff to him called Ice Pillar that makes it so that he gets a follow-up attack on everything he does as long as they've got Ice Prison and he has Ice Pillar. So you get an extra Brave HP attack that refunds some of his bravery, and it's just extra damage. It makes his C65 hit decently hard as well. It all just pays off nicely, and it also helps in maintaining that the Ice Prison debuff. And then once you've put all your ingots and everything into it, he starts the fight with Silent Instructor, so that's his max brave and attack party buff. And he also starts the fight where all enemies are debuffed with Ice Prison to begin with, which is like I said earlier, so it means you don't necessarily have to sort of keep on top of using your skills at the beginning of the fight if you don't want to. And then Ice Pillar becomes 3 hit Brave HP once you put the third ingot into it. The actual Ice Reaper attack itself is a 6 hit Brave HP that hits twice, so it's still decently hitting hard even with everything else that's going on. And of course he gets Ice Pillar on top of this as well because he's attacking an enemy while he has Ice Pillar. And then he also gets a Brave attack plus plus and an HP attack plus plus, where the HP plus plus actually helps you maintain Ice Prison, so you don't have to worry about using your skills at all. It's a 2-hit Brave HP attack, which is a little bit lesser nowadays, but let's not forget you also get Ice Pillar on top of this because you are still hitting damage, or you're still damaging an enemy that has the debuff on them. And then of course you have his LD. Now Absolute Zero basically makes it so that everyone gets the maximum capacity of Ice Prison, so until their next turn, they are going to be taking a buttload more HP damage, like 30%. I could be wrong on that, and I could be wrong, and I think it might be 25%, but I'm fairly sure it's 30%, so do correct me if I'm wrong on that one. And 8 hit Brave HP, 100% AoE damage is fantastic, and it also gives him another party-wide buff called Warm Gaze, which raises your party's attack again, and also gives them more Brave Overflow, which is fantastic. And then his LD makes it so that Warm Gaze lasts for 12 turns. Obviously, you've also made it so that they've already loaded up with 5 levels of Ice Prison, so you've got the maximum potential out of that. Just by using his LD, you're just snap your fingers and everyone's good to go to just go ham when it goes to damage. Now, you only get 3 uses of this, and obviously Kurasame doesn't have a burst, so you're going to want to use this sparingly, but in the times where you do use this, expect your damage to go through the roof. In terms of artifacts, sadly, Kurasame C50 isn't a party-wide buff, but honestly, he's got so much going for him in terms of offensive party auras, he doesn't really need it. But raising his max bravery and attack while his Silent Instructor is active, which it should always be active if you're using Kurasame, is going to be the way to go. And then attack 108 is a given on any damage dealer. He does a strong amount of damage, bearing in mind that just by bringing him, your HP damage is going up by a hefty percentage, including his own. So that's obviously going to factor in. And the fact that his EX hits twice, the fact that he gets the follow-up attack on everything that refunds his bravery, and that's increased with HP damage, it all adds up to an extremely damaging character. And for that reason, as well as the fact that he has the Unity Keystone on his armor, I actually think that Kurasame is the first character that I'm going to pick up the high armor for, because I didn't get any for Warrior of Light or any of the first batch. I didn't get any for 8 because I don't have 8. But then with Kurasame, the fact that he has an extra party-wide sort of effect that increases the bravery damage dealt by 5%, that 500 doesn't sound like much to one character, but when it's to all 3 of you, and you're getting it on top of everything else that Kurasame provides, I actually think he's a great candidate for picking up the high armor. So now let's take a look at the event itself and the Luthenia mission that's going to come along with Kurasame and his event. So you're going to be facing off against 2 Devil Hornets, which are obviously a variant on the bugs that we've seen before. But the main gimmick with these guys is they like to pass off this aura between the 2 of them, which is pretty horrendous, to be honest. It means they can't be delayed in any way, so that includes break. They massively increase the amount of HP damage that they deal, so they're fighting fire with fire just like Kurasame. They also reduce any bravery or HP damage they take, and it basically just makes that particular Hornet an absolute nightmare to deal with. However, you can counteract this by dealing ice damage to them because it reduces some of the effects of the aura, and ice damage is generally the name of the game when it comes to this particular fight. So with this, as well as the Lufenia Orb, where the trigger for this is to deal ice damage to the enemies, it doesn't actually make the orb count back up, it makes it freeze. So it freezes the orb until the enemy takes their next turn. So you're going to want to keep on top of this as much as physically possible, and the actual orb itself will appear while HP is less than 80% or 30%, but it also cancels between those two, so while it's at 50% it will cancel up until they're back at 30%, and then you're going to need to deal with it until they're dead. So the orb is something that you're going to be constantly on top of, and because it's an elemental damage based one, you are going to want to bring somebody that can deal that type of damage consistently. So if you don't necessarily have Kurasame, there are other characters that you can take. So for example, you have Keita, who I plan to take because I still think that she's going to do really well, and she's going to be able to kind of play the tanking role while she's dealing with that. And I plan to get Kurasame as well, so I'll spoil that for the should you pull bit now. So Keita and Kurasame together seems pretty nasty when they're both dealing ice damage and the HP damage is dealt on top of Keita's traps and everything. That should work quite nicely. Or you could bring Palom if you want to. If you 3 out of 3 EX plus your Palom recently, now is a great time for you to pull him out. You could even bring Onion Knight, like I have seen clears for Onion Knight, but if you are bringing him, you better hope that you bring someone else that's bringing the pain, because Onion Knight's damage isn't quite up to scratch with a lot of the current sort of environment in which the damage dealers are. So, you know, if you're bringing him, you may want to consider bringing somebody like Noctis along as well. It's important to know that the enemies always start the fight with an AoE Brave HP attack, like they always start it. So therefore you're probably going to want to bring somebody along that's going to want to ward damage off you. So obviously Warrior of Light is synergy for this still, so if you don't have his stuff already, or if you do already have his stuff, then this is a great place to bring him. If not, you could bring a tank-based character along as well. So if you're bringing Keita, 8 can also work really well alongside her because he can evade and counter everything that they do. Or you could bring along Desh or somebody like that that's just going to reduce the amount of bravery damage that you take. So he's got his anti-physic or anti-magic auras up so that you can make sure that you're taking less damage while you still have the HP regen. And he's not going to interrupt a tank like Keita or Warrior of Light or Barsh or anything like that. He's not going to interrupt or like mess up them in any way. So the example team that I have here is Keita, Desh, and Noctis. Noctis actually works really well in this particular fight because freezing the orb, it's frozen until they take their next turn. Well, that's when Noctis can come in and do Noctis-y things where he comes in and they don't really get a turn for a long time. And it's also important to note as well that while you can't delay or break the enemies while they've got their aura up, deleting their turn, that's still okay. So if you wanted to bring along a Mid-Italian, then a Mid-Italian is still going to do a Mid-Italian thing. So don't worry too much about that. So these are going to this is like the end of like the easier sort of area for Lufenias. So this one actually isn't too bad as long as you have ice damage. As long as you keep on top of the auras, you can make it so that sort of like, you know, if your tank or whoever is taking a load of the hits, if you've got the ice damage, then you can make sure you're not taking taking the Lufenia orb. Even if you're not taking ice damage, Edge can still work here, because he's still at the point where he can still dodge the Lufenia orb attacks. However, if you do that, then bear in mind that when they do actually use their abilities, they dispel everything that you've got, and they also give themselves attack up and HP regen, and that's going to make your fight a lot longer. So do bear that in mind if you plan on taking Edge. Honestly, as long as you've got ice damage, high damage dealers, and some sort of healing or tanking or method of not taking too much damage, you should be fine. So now we come to the big question of the video that of course you're all waiting for. Should you be pulling on Kurasame's banner? Now there are a lot of reasons to want Kurasame as far as I'm concerned. Kurasame is a high level damage dealer. He has an effect that not many characters get, certainly not in the way that Kurasame does, so that in a way that increases your entire party's damage output exponentially, and it's really useful to have. So honestly, there are a lot of reasons that I want him, or at least personally, just on the back of that alone. And he's a character that lasts for a long time. Like, he's not as mandatory as, say, Gladio or Lightning per se, and a lot of people do feel that Kurasame is slightly overhyped. because of his he's not needed for a lot of content, and as time progresses there are a lot of characters that you might use over him. However, I think that in terms of like, if you were somebody that liked to sort of stop and save wherever possible, Kurasame is a great character to invest in, because he's a character that gets used in some of the hardest Lufenias in the early mission or the early days, like Sephiroth's one, Reno's one. He gets used like in many different Lufenias, all the way up until sort of like Trey Lost Chapter, Edward Lost Chapter, and they're not even like, they're just about to release his LD boards and extend his LD ability in JP, and he's still being used now. So that goes to show just how much of a shelf life this guy has, even if he's not like the absolute 100% best character in the game. He is someone that will do you well for a very long time. And you know, if you don't have any other ice damage dealers, then this is probably the strongest one you're going to get, at least until Onion Knight gets his Eldian burst. So there's that to bear in mind. Honestly, I don't think there are many reasons to not at least throw a few tickets at Kurasame, unless you were like low on resources and you were really saving for Gladio and Lightning, and you wanted to use this event, and then a Bahamut with Kuja, perhaps you're planning on skipping Kuja as well, and you want to save up as much as physically possible for those two, then I understand why you might want to skip Kurasame. And there are people that don't necessarily care about him and don't really want him, and they want to kind of just save because their pulling plans don't include Kurasame, and that's fine too. He's not a character that like you're going to suffer by not having, but he's going to make your life a lot easier in a large plethora of different events, and he lasts for a really long time. So I think to skip out on Kurasame would be a shame, even if I did understand it from other people's perspectives. I also don't have Cypher EX, like just as a bonus thing. Like Edgar on this banner is still terrible. Like he's still awful, unfortunately. He needs a heck of a rework before he gets to be playable again. The Cypher's actually not bad. Like he was one of the later, like he came out with Lena's EX Plus a while back, and he's pretty good. He's not gonna like carry you through Lufenia or anything, but if you don't have him, then he's a nice extra bonus character to grab. But like I said, I think that if you haven't got Warrior of Light's Burst already, this is the best banner for you to pull it on. And honestly, I really like Kurasame. From a personal standpoint, I don't see many reasons not to pull for him with at least a few tickets. So now we come to Would You Pull, the portion of the video where you, the viewers, can take control over the sort of the video itself and let me know whether you would pull or wouldn't pull on any banner at any given time and give your reasons why. Now, of the people that I've asked, which are obviously my patrons, I've got a nice big poll here. People were very quick to talk about Kurasame. 51% of people said they were going in with gems on this banner, so that's really interesting, and the people obviously really want Kurasame. 37% of people said that they were going to use tickets, and then 12% of people said that they weren't going to pull on the banner at all. Now, I think this is really interesting because I'm personally not planning on using gems on this banner, but that's because I have EX tokens. What I would like to try and do is use this banner and Kuja's banner to save up like my gems as much as possible for Gladio when he comes around, because with Kuja I only need his LD, and because of the tokens I've got, the same applies to Kurasame. And because I want Kuja's burst really badly, I want to be using gems on a banner that has that on it, which is Gladiolus. So what I want to do is use tickets, grab the LD, and then if I don't get anything else before the LD, I'll just token everything else, because I want Kurasame, but I'm going to try and be jammy with tickets. But a lot of people have said that they were really excited for it. Patch says, big yes, hearing about Kurasame's increase to HP damage and usage in late Lufenia definitely has me hyped to pull. I'm currently low on gems, so I'm trying my luck with tickets first, but if I have to, I'll resort to gems for sure. Which is interesting, because like, that's totally the opposite of what I've said. Like, I mean, everyone's pulling plans are different, and I think that's great. Like, I'm using tickets because I don't want to use gems, but then I don't really want to, I don't like using gems on anything. So this is a really interesting take. Everything's coming up. Millhouse says, tickets from me. Kurasame is really cool, no pun intended, but my resources took a real beating from Warrior of Light's LD. I need to secure Kuja and Gao, and while I'd very much like to nab Kurasame, I can live without him if I absolutely have to. He's just a touch overhyped, and seeing as Cypher LD is coming on his Lost Chapter, I'm definitely pulling then anyway. So that's a nice thing to note as well, is that if you don't necessarily want to pull for Kurasame, he is going to come back. He comes back with a Lost Chapter. Is it a long way away? Yeah, it is quite a long way away, but he'll come back with a brand new toy that you wouldn't have had before. Like, for me personally, I didn't pull on Desh the first time around, and then the next time Desh comes around, he comes back with his LD boards and Yang LD on top of it, which is actually one of the stronger ones, so that's really nice as well. Fantendo says, gems, yes, 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 no question about it. Kurasame is one of the few characters I've actually been really looking forward to this era. His ability to increase damage means that I don't have to bring characters like Scabranth or Charlotta and revolve teams around them. Plus, from the day I first met him in Type 0, I instantly loved him. Plus, all his animations are cool, especially his LD that chills the screen. His animations are actually very cool. And honestly, like, there's a part of me that really, like, I mean, I really can't afford it, but there's a part of me that really wants his costume just because it reminds me of the manga. And if you haven't read the Type 0 manga that's all about Kurasame, I would suggest you go and read it for no other reason than his pet Tonberry. His pet Tonberry is everything. Tyro says, this one will be a no from me. Going to continue to save for Gladio, and I do not feel like pushing the crazy luck I had with 8's banner. So this is, again, like what I was saying earlier about the fact that there are people out there that deem Gladio a much more important character to save for than Kurasame. So if you are one of those people, you can live without him. There is no character that, outside of maybe Gladio, that everybody is going to want to pull for. Like I said, as much as this is a very popular banner, the poll down here, it says 12% of people said that they weren't going to pull on this, so that it's not going to be for everybody. And then finally, John Mario says, I'd pull with gems with Kurasame as I've already completed Kuja's kit. I don't really need Kuja's burst, so I can gem pull freely with Kurasame's kit, then try to go with Kuja's LD with tickets. I just hope that I can complete Kurasame's kit earlier so the resources I get from Bahamut's boards can go into Gladio's banner. This way, I can hope for Warrior of Light's burst. Again, this is probably the best place where you can pull for Warrior of Light's burst if you already have his LD. If you already have 8, if you really like 8, you may want to consider going for him instead, but I personally believe Kurasame to be a better investment. There are others that will probably disagree with me, but I think Kurasame, being used in such a wide variety of Lufenias, he's only really locked out by ice damage absorbers, which there are a lot fewer than, say, Holy or Thunder as time goes on. So Kurasame, as far as I'm concerned, is a really good investment. So that's going to be all for today's video. Thank you all very much for watching, and thank you to all of my patrons who voted and cast their comments on the Would You Pull portion of this video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and click that bell for notifications on any future videos I might be making, whether they be for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia or my Final Fantasy Count-Up or any other videos like reviews or anything like that that I might be doing as well. Anyways, that's going to be it from me. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.